Shabbat Shalom. Who here had the great experience, or is looking forward to the great experience, of reading The Tale of Two Cities in their high school English class, or they call it language arts now, don't they? Really? No one? You read it? Yeah? Got a few hands around it? No one's really going, yeah! Tale of Two Cities! I don't see a lot of enthusiasm, but I do remember that book for a couple of very important reasons, but there's only one I want to talk about tonight, which was suddenly I realized authors were actually meaning to do what they did. That they weren't just randomly telling a story. As we were reading through it and we finally got to the French Revolution and the blood and the horrible things, our teacher told us to go back and look at the earlier chapters where it talked about the cask of wine that was shattered on the cobbled streets that ran with the red of the wine. And the teacher said, see, this is foreshadowing. Right? We all remember those literary terms, right? Foreshadowing, allusion, metaphor, right? Foreshadowing, that this is something the author puts in early, which will be a reference of what is coming later. But not so obvious as to say, by the way, this is telling you what's happening. But there if you're looking for it, there if you are paying attention for it, and certainly there the second time you read through it. All right, so what psalm did I tell you to pay attention to and spot things? Mizmor LeDavid, also known as Psalm 29. Thank you for noticing which psalm number it was. Found on page 34. All right, you may want to take a look at page 34 because now the ultimate question, what word appears the most in that psalm? Almost abnormally so. Adonai. Adonai. How many times does Adonai appear? Anyone quick on the count? Go. 6? More than 6. More than 15. More than 12. Fewer than 21. 18. 18. Chai. The name of God, Adonai, in the Hebrew, and yes, some translations are a little bit loose on this, but in the Hebrew, the name of God, Adonai, appears 18 times. 18 in Jewish number conversion back into letters equals Yud and Chet, Yud and Chet, which means 18, and that is Chai, which is life. God is 18 times in this psalm, which corresponds to life. What is this telling us? That God and life are the same, and that God is everywhere in life. Remember, the beauty of this psalm, in its basic prose, is that God, the Kol Adonai, the sound of God, the voice of God, the presence of God is everywhere. That it is more powerful than the noises of heaven, than the cedars of Lebanon and everything around us. That God is embedded throughout the world for us to notice if you're looking. The same way that we don't notice foreshadowing if we're not paying attention for it, we don't notice God in the world around us if we're not paying attention to trying to find God in the world around us. The world can seem quite godless if we just keep our face down and plow through life thinking that somehow the end is a finish line that we want to reach. Most of us are not really looking forward to crossing that tape. But instead, if we look around us with our eyes open for the presence of God, we will find that God is everywhere in life, in Chai. That God is constantly present. Now, this psalm itself has another very neat trick up its sleeve, because it is the psalm that finishes the series of psalms that takes us through the beginning of Kabbalat Shabbat. And how many psalms are there? There's 150 in the whole book of Psalms, but there are not 150 Psalms before we begin Shabbat, or else it would take a lot longer to get there. No one's going to flip back to Lachuna Ranana and count pages between. I'll give you a hint. It's also very symbolic. Got a guess? Not 18. Okay, well, let's stop guessing, right? All right, well, there's about 7 of them-ish. Psalm 29 is the 6th psalm. Where's the 7th? We're on the 7th day. Where's the 7th psalm? Well, we do rest, but there is a 7th psalm. Psalm 92.
We just don't say it.
We do. Mizmor shir le'yom haShabbat, tov lehodot la'Adonai. Remember Psalm 92? All right, just a few seconds ago, people, right? Psalm 92. I know I didn't tell you to pay attention to that one, but that's the, trickiness. Psalm 92 is the 7th psalm in the cycle, because Psalm 92 is the official beginning of Shabbat. And all of the 6 psalms before it are leading us day by day throughout the 6 days of creation, pointed at Psalm 92, pointed at Shabbat. But lo and behold, what do we find now that we see the pattern is there? That we go 6 psalms, and do we go straight to Psalm 92? What about Psalm 93? Well, Psalm 93 is actually the psalm for Friday in the daily liturgy, and Psalm 93 and Psalm 92 already formed a unit long before Kabbalat Shabbat was invented. So we kept Psalm 93, which actually ends up giving us 8 psalms because, well, Judaism's like that. But Psalm 92 is the capstone of the march towards Shabbat. And once we hit Psalm 92, we are in Shabbat, and then Psalm 93 is extra. But think, Psalm 29, right, the one with God's name 18 times. Psalm 92, the actual psalm of Shabbat. That makes 7 together. What happens? What would you expect? You'd expect them to be together. What happens between them? We have Lecha Dodi. This is not an accident. Just like Charles Dickens didn't say the cask of wine broke on the cobblestones because he needed filler. I thought that at the time, but it wasn't really just filler. The author was doing something. So too, our ancestors who arranged the Siddur were doing something. They added Lecha Dodi to tell us that yes, the other 6 days flow and flow and flow, and God is present in life all around us. But for this day, the 7th day, we have to greet the 7th day. We have to welcome the 7th day. We have to see in the 7th day God's presence most clearly, not scattered in 18 different little facets around life, but the 7th day is all God. It's what we call Shabbat. And so we greet Shabbat specially, differently than every other day of the week. And we say, Lecha Dodi, right? Let's go out, my beloved, to greet Shabbat Kala, to greet the Sabbath bride. And once we have greeted the Sabbath bride, then we can sing the Psalm of Shabbat. So there is an interruption in the cycle leading to 7. But you don't notice it an interruption if you just keep turning the pages without wondering, wait, why did we go from a whole bunch of Psalms into this other thing, which isn't a Psalm, and then back into Psalms, and why were there 6, and then there's one more, and then there's this extra? It all means something. To come back to that first example, the 18 times God's name is mentioned in Psalm 29 is not accidental. The arrangement of our prayers are not accidental. But we will miss it if we're not trying to find it. So every time you open up the Siddur, or you open up the Torah, or you open your eyes to the world around you, look, wonder, be amazed and question. And if you can't come up with an answer on your own, ask the person next to you what they think. Because maybe they've seen something you haven't. Or maybe you can share with them what you've seen. And then come and share it with the rest of us. Shabbat Shalom. You can save the question for later.